everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk about Black History Month. The month that is a celebration of my people, because I am a black man and everything. And it's about all our accomplishments, all the oppression that we have gone through over like centuries of living in like America and stuff like that. And even till this day, we are still being oppressed. And so I'm here today to talk to you about certain characters or TV shows or episodes that revolve around Black History Month that I personally enjoy. So I'm here today to talk to you about Hammerman, the Saturday morning cartoon that aired in 1991. It is, well, I'll get into that a little bit. First, I need to make a correction. I assumed that Zach was the very first black superhero I ever saw on screen. I totally forgot that this show came out in 1991. So technically, Hammerman is the very first superhero I ever saw, and cartoon-wise. And then the second was actually Storm from the X-Men cartoon, because she came out in 1992. And then Power Rangers came out in 93. So Zach would have been technically the first live action superhero I saw. But Hammerman was the first superhero that was black that I ever saw. Now, Hammerman. Oh boy, that takes me back. That really takes me back. It took me so far back that I actually... Okay, so Hammerman is one of those things that like you think to yourself, for 2 months out of my time, did I hallucinate something? Do I remember seeing MC Hammer putting on some magical shoes and becoming a superhero? And indeed he did. See, back in those days of the 90s, they were really trying to capitalize on everything they could. And one of the things they were trying to capitalize were live action people that were famous. Think of Hammer Time as like Jackie Chan Adventures, only Jackie Chan Adventures made more sense and was a whole lot better and stuff. Now, I'm not gonna diss on Hammerman, because it was a pretty interesting and unique cartoon. Only problem is it was made in the early 90s. And if you know anything about the 90s was all about cheese. Cheesy, 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 cheese. Like 80s was like in your face with attitude and like wild, colorful like clothes and stuff like that. And almost techno sounding kind of music. And big hair and stuff, but 90s was all about that cheese factor. And it was also about making heroes out of people. And so, like, because he was a rising rap star at that time, MC Hammer was literally, bigger than life at that time. And if you've never heard of MC Hammer, then where have you been? Like, Can't Touch This, Hammer Time, the dude who wore the giant, like, parachute looking pants. And they were really colorful and, that dude, you know what I'm saying? And so, I've always wondered whatever happened to him. I know he was a rapper for a while in the 90s. Then when that phased out, I think he became a pastor. I have no idea what he's doing now. But, yeah. He was just like this really cool, like bigger than life type person. And so Hollywood tried to capitalize on that. And I remember when this came out, I'm just like, hey, it's MC Hammer. He has a cartoon. Hey, why he sound different? And why is his shoes talking? But he was like a superhero. And so since I was a huge fan of his growing up, and like, he had his own cartoon series, he was a superhero, of course I watched that, man. I was a kid in the 90s, and Saturday mornings was the best time to watch cartoon, and really, really the only time at that time, so I watched it and stuff. But see, it's funny, because like I was thinking about this for like making a video out of, but I was actually looking on YouTube for C, Bear, and Jamal, and I could not for the life of me find not one episode online, except for one, but it's been dubbed over by people reacting to it. So I didn't watch that, and the only thing I could find of that is the intro. And so basically, C, Bear, and Jamal is like it's a predominantly black show. These kids like live in the hood and stuff, and Jamal has a teddy bear that's magical and comes to life, and his voice is by a famous rapper. And so, like, but then as I was searching on YouTube, then Hammerman came up. I'm like, well, I might as well watch this because I was gonna like talk about it, but I don't really remember much about it other than MC Hammer having magical shoes and being a superhero. That's all I really remember. And so, like, and when it comes to Steve Bear and Jamal, I don't remember nothing about that, to tell you the truth. Like, I'm drawing like a huge blank and stuff. So that's why I wanted to like rewatch it, but then I can't even talk about it because I don't remember nothing about it. But so yeah, Hammerman, it only lasted for one season and it only had 13 episodes. Now, it was created by the Deke company, and Deke is the people responsible for like Inspector Gadget and a bunch of older cartoons from back in the day, and they're the ones who did the first American dub or English dub of like Sailor Moon. It was also created by an Italian and a Spanish company for animation. That was something I never knew. And so it came out in the fall on ABC. And the animation style is very unique and striking. Like once you see it, like you automatically like gravitate to it. It has a very unique style to it that does not look American. It does not look like Japanese anime. And so when you look at it, it looks very reminiscent of like how you would see older like African like painting drawings and stuff like that. So, which makes sense because this is a predominantly black show. And it's really weird because, you know, you don't see too many predominantly black cartoon shows, especially back in those days. And so they're very rare to like find. And so, like, I just love the like animation, like drawing of it. And, but however, the actual animation itself, like when things move, was very crude. It was very choppy looking and it was very hokey looking. Like when some people would run, it looked kind of like the way South Park people run. Like there was this one dude who was running and he had these big baggy pants, and instead of running like a normal person, they only show like the side of him moving around like a South Park character. And I'm just like, what in the world? Like what the world did that Italian company do? And stuff. Now, MC Hammer actually did appear in this. So it is kind of similar, very to like Jackie Chan Adventures, where like Jackie would appear in the beginning of an episode and he'll appear in the end, like, in live action, talking like the kids and stuff. And that's how this was. So this was kind of like the predecessor to that cartoon that happened almost like a decade later and stuff. And so like MC Hammer would appear in the beginning of episodes. First, he would sing the intro, which was very long, and the intro explained everything that happened and how Hammer got like the shoes and stuff. I'll just get to later. So he'll do that. Then he'll be sitting around a bunch of kids and he'll talk to them. Then these kids will do like the what do you call it? Like a segue area? Like you know how like the before a commercial break, like no after no wait. Okay, before and after a commercial break. You know how like somebody would say, be right back or we're back, you know, something like that. The kids would do that. And then at the end, he would talk and give like a nice little moral lesson on what the episode was about. Now, one thing I always thought was kind of interesting is that, hey, if this is a predominantly black show and it's supposed to be like that, the market to black kids, why were all the kids in live action white except for one kid that was black? I never understood that. However, since this is a predominantly black like cartoon show and a lot of black actors are in this, some for the most part, I guess it makes sense because you're kind of like, oh, okay, you know, rap isn't just for like one type of person, it's for everybody, and this is a kid's show, and you know, it has a nice blend. But I always thought it was kind of weird how it only had that one little black kid in live action, and the rest were like other races and stuff. But it was a nice blend and stuff, so I'll give them that. And so basically, this is what Hammerman's about. Now, the show always had these moral, like social lessons they tried to teach kids. Well, it was a big thing in the 90s when it came to cartoons. Why? Because back in them older days, cartoons were way too violent. So when it came time to like the 80s and the 90s, they tried to teach like a moral lesson here and there and stuff. Now, you can only find 2 episodes on YouTube. The very first one, and one that happens towards the middle, called Nobody's Perfect. That's the one I watched. Now, the first episode is broken down into two parts. I don't know if the second part is still uploaded or not. And so, like, basically, it's like this. The intro states that back in the 1960s, 70s, there used to be this man. His name is now Gramps because he's grandpa. And back in the 1960s, he was a superhero known as Soul Man who had these two magical shoes. But he got too old and he got too weak. And so him and his granddaughter, they travel all over to find the next superhero. And then they found Stanley, which is MC Hammer's real name. Stanley, what's his last name? It's something with the B, I remember. Burrell. So they found Stanley. And Stanley is this like youth counselor type dude. Youth center type counselor. So they find him to be the next superhero. So he puts on the magical shoes and he transformed into Hammerman. And Hammerman, so when Stanley in his regular clothes is just like a regular clothes, button up white shirt, no tie, and then he transformed into Hammer in his like, traditional look with the gold chain, baggy pants and stuff like that. And so like what's interesting that his face and like hair doesn't change. So how do people not know he's him? I don't know. And stuff. And so like it's really interesting because like the shoes, their name is Lefty and Righty. So 90s. And then one of them's voiced by Ron Rubin, who's a very famous voice actor who done some stuff with Deke. He was Tark in Craft Creatures. He was Artemis in the Deke version of Sailor Moon. And so, like, I don't know who voiced Lefty, but he voiced Righty, I think. So when it comes to the voice cast, there's a whole list of names on it. Problem is information was very scarce, so you don't know who voiced who, and they don't have it on like Wikipedia or IMDb, so you just have to kind of like guess and stuff. But Hammerman, Stanley, he wasn't voiced by MC Hammer. That's the same thing with Jackie Chan. They don't voice their own characters. They get a professional voice actor, and he got Clark Johnson, who is a huge actor and director. He's directed about as much stuff as he's acted in. Like, that dude has done a lot, and I mean a lot. And so, like, this show was also accompanied by two black, like, vocal artists. I don't know who they were, but they were constantly being like in every episode, and whenever something bad would happen, sometimes they would be there. Like in this episode, the bridge is falling, so they're there on the bridge, hold on to like the rope and stuff. And sometimes they'll like pop in and like out, or like throughout the entire episode, singing and everything. They were probably his vocal backup singers or dancers in real life, probably. I don't know who they were, and I don't know who they were voiced by, but you can tell they had a very striking, like, soulful type voice, And so, like, it's weird because, like, his shoes were so weird and goofy because it was so 90s, like, you know what I'm saying? And then, like, but when he would transform, for the most part, his shoes didn't talk or be animate. Now, his shoes had two eyes and their mouths flap open, and their shoelaces will be like, loose to act as like hands and everything. And so, like, since he was a youth center, I always liked that. Like, the fact that he was a youth center trying to help out the youth and stuff like that, because it's kind of like black people get a bad reputation for like certain like members of the black community. Like, when most non-black people think of black folks, they just automatically assume everybody's ghetto, everybody's like thugs, everybody's in the gang, everybody's selling drugs, everybody's shooting up, everything like that. But then you have like shows like this, and shows like Malcolm and Eddie, shows like Blackish, and like all kind of stuff that show black people in a different light. It shows what the other side of the black community is like. And we are just like anybody else. Like everybody has like there are white gangs, Hispanic, Asian, but when people always think of gangs, they always think of black, and they always associate that with black people, and um, and they always assume that every black person is from like the hood and they act a certain way. And even those that are from like urban type areas, they're not always running the streets, and I always hate that like idea that people always assume that's how black people should be, how they should act, and everybody has to like wear their clothes like baggy or their pants falling off their butt or them like constantly using like the N word and stuff like that. And it's just like, just like there are different types of white people in white society, there are different type of black people in black society. So I don't understand that, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, why they always assume like there's only one type, and I always do like these shows that try to show that hey, um, that try to like educate like the younger black people so they don't have to run in the streets and end up in jail like my cousins and stuff like that, because you always get that one member that's always locked up and stuff, and it really like and so like shows like this, it is really nice when they like show that light. And another show I'm about to talk about, Free Reign, which is very similar like that too. And so it's like, black people, like young black kids, they need those type of role models and people to look up to. And that's why diversity is a huge factor in television. And why I'm always supportive of like pushing the boundaries of like race bending and stuff like that. Because you need that type of representation. Because TV teaches people a lot. And I mean a lot. And so like it's always good to have those good role models and stuff instead of like, 'cause, like and so with Stanley in this episode basically it's like this. He is, he's at home, he's doing his thing, the shoes are doing their things, and he's getting ready because his mom and his brother are coming to visit. And so Gramps, um he tells him like, because he's trying to prepare like his house and stuff. Well, Gramps tell him, hey, like there's a bridge that's down and there's people on there and they need your help. So of course he puts on the shoes and he turns into Hammerman, and he kind of like, I think he flies wherever he goes. Now this is what's interesting about his powers. He Whenever he does what he does, he raps. And so like when he shows up to like save somebody, he raps a lyric that has to that correlates to what's happening, and then like these magical like sheet notes will either come from like the shoes or like his hands or something like that, right? So the bridge ropes are breaking, so he uses his magical sheet powers to like make new ropes and stuff like that, and he ties them all up. But he didn't tie them up good enough because he was too busy in the rush. And so like he goes back home, but his mom and brother are already there. And his mom and his brother's an inventor. And so like his brother tells his mom, like I love Stanley, but I can understand you like him more, mom, because I always try to be like him because he's so perfect and this and that. Well, and Stanley's like, well, other than doing the youth center thing, he's like a singer. And but the other dude's like an inventor. So you think an inventor be like, yo, man, I'm all that. But no, he actually looks up to his older brother and stuff and thinks he isn't all that like. And so Stanley shows up, they talk this and that. And his brother has kind of like this like scientific like convention type thing, and he built like a robot. So his mom's very excited about that and she wants to go. But then here comes Gramps, and this is how you know Gramps ain't related to him, because the mom has no idea who he is. And so like Gramps tell him, oh man, I hate to break up like the little family reunion thing, but I need you to go find Hammerman, because like the bridge that he fixed, he didn't fix it. He was too busy, too busy in a rush. And so like, um, so like, forget. I don't know if he goes right away, but then he does end up going and fixing the bridge. And I think he fixes it in a different way. And so, he's doing like, his typical like, rapping and sheet notes coming from like the shoes and the fingertips and this and that. But anyways, back with his mom and brother, he built a robot that's supposed to seek out imperfection and then make it perfect, fix it. However, the robot goes haywire, and he like thinks everything is imperfect. When he sees a mess on the floor, that's imperfect. He tries to fix it. He goes haywire and he causes all this like crazy stuff. Well, by this time, Hammerman has turned back into Stanley, and he's all like, you have to flip the switch on like the bat. Now, what's really cool about this is that he could have easily turned into Hammerman, but he decided to like fight the machine like as regularly like Stanley and everything. So it shows his bravery without the magical shoes and stuff. And so, like, his mom is in real danger. He's trying to throw her down, like, some type of, like, elevator shaft and stuff. And so, after he rescued her, his brother's all like, no, I have to, like, stop this robot and stuff because it's going haywire and all this other crap. And, because so after he disables the robot, he flips the switch. When they leave, at some point the switch like flips back automatically. So then this is when a second like fight has to ensure and everything. And then his brother's all like, I have to like stop it and everything because like he's trying to like wreak havoc and all this other stuff. And he feels that he's a failure because he's the one who created the robot. Well, at some point Stanley turns back into Hammerman, and he defeats like the robot and stuff like that. And so, like, then after that, of course, live action MC Hammer, he gives a moral lesson telling people that, nobody's perfect, everybody make mistakes. And once you make that mistake, you have to correct it and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's basically how, like, every episode is. I'm not really sure who all he fights in other episodes. Because, like I said, this came out in 91 and it's 2022. So that's kind of hard to remember. But now that I have rewatched that episode, I'm kind of curious. Now I'm probably going to go back and watch the first episode. I just hope the second part's there. You know how YouTube is and how ABC wants their money and stuff. I will link the episode below. So you can just kind of see for you. It's one of those things you have to experience for yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very unique thing and stuff. So, yeah. But, this happens a lot. I mean, I think Mr. T had his own cartoon at one point. I know Mike Tyson just recently had one. I already told you about Jackie Chan. I remember Jim Carrey had two cartoons based on two characters he created, what was voiced by the same person. And this is just like a huge trend that always happened in the 90s and stuff. Where, like I said before, they'll take a cartoon, make a cartoon out of like a real life person and make them like a superhero. It was just the thing to do in the 90s, Happy Black History Month, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.